Toshiba's scandalous fall from grace. It took Toshiba 70 years to get to the top, and in only 10 it fell disastrously. We are talking about the first company to manufacture a laptop computer, 37 years ago, in 1985. After the war, Toshiba, together with Sony, Hitachi, Panasonic, was one of the giants that allowed Japan to become a technological power of mass products. Between the late 70s and the 90s, Toshiba was one of those standards of Japanese quality, but in economics no success story has an assured future, especially in this market. And since the year 2017, Toshiba has been in intensive care. What happened to Toshiba? Before continuing with the topic, remember to subscribe to the channel, leave us your like and do not forget to give us your opinion when the video ends, below in the comments. One factor that explains its failure relates to Japanese corporate culture. Before World War II, Toshiba belonged to family-owned, vertically controlled monopolies. That rigidity was left behind when Toshiba joined a Mitsu Saibatsu, an informal industrial conglomerate that mixes relationships, shares, and business, while replicating in financial social networks. To understand why Toshiba fell, we need to take a look at its history. Toshiba's history. The company was created shortly before the outbreak of World War II, in the year 1939, through the merger of two electrical engineering firms. Mr. Tanaka's company, Shibora Seisakusho, a leading manufacturer of electrical appliances, and Tokyo Denki, a pioneer in the field of electric lamps in Japan. The name Toshiba is an anagram that joins the first syllables of the first names of the two companies after their merger. That was how people called it, because it was simpler. Once it was created, its expansion was very fast. For this growth, the firm followed a policy of acquisitions that included heavy engineering companies and basic industries. Toshiba holds some of Japan's industrial records, as it was the first to develop radar in 1912, the first to produce televisions, and the pioneer in the development of microwave ovens. Toshiba is comparable for what it did in its glory days, to what Tesla or Apple represent today. It opened a technological door, marked by developments that changed the world. But not everything in Toshiba's history has been cutting-edge technology. In 1987, a subsidiary of Toshiba was caught selling giant blades to the Soviet Union for use in their submarines. The Toshiba Kongsberg scandal, as it became known, cooled Japan's relations with the United States, and ended with the arrest of two important company executives, as well as the imposition of sanctions by both countries. Toshiba's first laptop and the world's first laptop, was released in the year 1985. This first laptop was nothing like the sleek and lightweight laptop that a laptop can be. Today Toshiba's looks like a brick with keys, but it was the first in the world. Unfortunately, the story of its technological splendor came to an end quickly, as in the late 90s, Toshiba's decline began. In 2015 the company reported losses in the millions. That same year, both the president and vice president resigned after an audit found that they had inflated profits for at least the previous 6 years. Then, in 2019, Toshiba failed to find a buyer for its UK business, bringing it a step closer to the abyss. In 1920, it announced that it would focus on disruptive technologies such as cryptography, quantum, high-capacity hydrogen cells and an algorithm that mimics quantum computing, among others. But the coup de grace would come that same year, with the company's decision to split into 3 distinct firms. 2 of these new companies would be in charge of infrastructure and electronics, while a third, which would be the only one to retain the brand name, would focus on managing the majority position and what remains of the original company. This reorganization plan should be completed in the year 2024. The accounting scandal in the year 2015. The Japanese financial and business world repeatedly belies the image of samurai efficiency and sobriety that Western pop culture often ascribes to the country. Japanese corporate scandals are more like Yakuza operations. Just take a look at Toshiba's accounting scandal in the year 2015. This accounting chicanery consisted of overstating the company's revenues over the previous 6 years. The investigation did not find that they had directly ordered the accounts to be manipulated. The employees were simply put under extreme pressure. The manager's calculation was that Japanese corporate culture, which is characterized by unquestioning loyalty and obedience, as well as devotion to work, would make employees comply no matter what. But with years of poor decision-making and being outperformed by competitors, Toshiba employees resorted to fraudulent hiding of losses and expenses, as well as accounting for future profits. These accounting practices, which affected several business units, were the product of an unhealthy management technique known as challenges, in which profit targets were set for the managers of the different units, with the warning that failure was not an option. Soon in the business units, they realized that the only way to please the bosses at the top was to commit fraud. Poor internal controls facilitated the manipulation of profits. The conclusions of the investigation seem naive, because of the obvious: change the corporate culture, improve internal control and eliminate the profit-oriented challenge system. With the decline of the company, announced since 1997, accounting fraud was a foolish thing to do. Many analysts, disbelieving the company's reported earnings, began to question more and more. So the fraudulent attempt to make the company look better than it was did not last long. The losses of 2017. At the end of 2016, Toshiba management called the press to report that it had found losses at a subsidiary of Westinghouse, with which it was building the Battle nuclear power plants in Georgia and South Carolina, in the United States. The losses amounted to $3.4 billion, at the same time that the company was delaying the publication of its financial statements, and renouncing to win if not. The CEO bankrupted its partnership with Westinghouse, and brought Toshiba close to bankruptcy, which it avoided by turning its micro-memory chip unit into a standalone business, and by selling other highly profitable subsidiaries. When things settled down a bit, it was determined that the colossal losses were due to construction delays, changing regulations and rising costs. Although in April Toshiba published its financial statements without the signature of any auditors. In fact, the famed audit firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers, expressly refused to do so. What else, beyond its credibility, did Toshiba lose? The memory chip division had to be sold for $18 billion to an investment firm that received capital from Apple, Dell and Kingstone. Considering the current demand for chips of all kinds, and how their selling prices have escalated, it was as if harakiri had been practiced. Then, to try to get out of the black hole, they also decided to sell their TV division, Toshiba Visual Solutions, to a Chinese multinational. The shock wave would last until April of the year 2018, when they sold the Westinghouse holding company. However, despite its magnitude, the accounting scandal and the losses at the U.S. nuclear facilities were not the last nails in Toshiba's coffin. In 2020 Toshiba exited the laptop business after 35 years. The company, a pioneer in laptop production, stopped producing computers. Both desktops and laptops. It did so by selling its stake in Dynabook. In 2018, Sharp had bought 80% of Toshiba personal computers, and in 2020 it bought what was left. It seems a long time ago that the company used to be proud of its laptops. In contrast, in 2011 the company sold 17 million personal computers, but by 2017 its sales had plummeted to only 1.9 million units per year. A year earlier, it had already stopped making laptops for personal customers, and had concentrated only on producing them for corporate customers. This, together with the previous losses, led it to close the door on the manufacture of laptops, just at a time when demand for them was increasing due to the health crisis. Despite this upturn, the personal computer business was and remains highly competitive, with margins getting tighter and tighter. The surge in demand for laptops could have given Toshiba some breathing room, but the weight of decades of mismanagement negated that possibility. Shareholders oust Toshiba's chairman. When shareholders sacked its CEO, the influence of foreign investors on the Tokyo Stock Exchange became apparent. This was unprecedented in a market where the influence of foreign investors had traditionally been limited, thanks to the fact that many shares were held by other companies or Japanese financial institutions. But this has changed in the last 5 years, and adds to the factors that explain Toshiba's fall. Part of that change has to do with foreigners taking large positions within Japanese companies at the same time that the country's corporate culture is changing to take into account shareholder demands. A shareholder is an investor who uses his or her stake to put pressure on a company's management. With a stronger voice, shareholders make it more difficult to make poor or non-transparent decisions, such as those that have led to the frauds in Toshiba's history. Perhaps with the new power of shareholders, plus the breakthrough technologies in which they intervene, there is some chance of resurrection for Toshiba. Perhaps, there is also hope in the new corporate culture, and in Japanese regulations, which are allowing shareholders to prevail over boards and reorient closed decisions. Will it be too late for Toshiba? Leave your comments below. Remember to like, subscribe and share this information, so that it reaches more people. Thanks for watching.